pancakes with your choice.
Yeah, the days just keep adding up. We're getting closer to that magic 100 mark, the end of the honeymoon days. It's day 91 of the Raw Deal. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Rush Limbaugh, the television show on the air. We are coming to you, as we always do, from the den of the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. Let's show you what we have coming up tonight, because a lot to do. Want to get started. This is Alan Greenspan. He's chairman of the Federal Reserve. You might have seen him sitting next to Hillary Clinton, co-president, during the State of the Nation address on February 17th. What we have to show you tonight is his attempt to get his credibility back after doing that. This is the Senate Majority Leader, George Mitchell. I had a chance to meet him for the first time Sunday in the green room at Meet the Press. I say that, I love those people down there, I'm just teasing. Now, we showed you a clip of the new chairman of the NAALCP, the National Association for the Advancement of Liberal Colored People, on yesterday's show. And for you, well, that's what it is. Now, that's exact. Ask Clarence Thomas if it's the NAA plain CP. For those of you who voted for Perot, of course, it's the National Association for the Advancement of You People. George Mitchell has echoed the sentiments articulated by the new chairman of the NAALCP. This is an amazing thing that he has said, and I think it indicates and illustrates profound desperation among the Democrats on Capitol Hill and in the White House. And they own it all. They own the White House, they own the House of Representatives, they own the Senate. They ought to be just sailing through everything they want, and they're having trouble, and we'll show you why. This is Robert Redford. We have a clip from this movie, Indecent Proposal, and we sent our cameras with Nick Africano out on the streets to ask people here in New York if they would do what Demi Moore and her husband, Woody Harrelson, did in that movie, Indecent Proposal. And some of the answers that we got are amazing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we seldom talk about ourselves here. And I seldom talk about myself at all. Time on this show is simply too precious. We generally stick to the issues. But there are those occasions, like yesterday's show, when 80% of the show was about me on Meet the Press. I got to show you something. This is absolutely amazing. It's the April 24th through 30th issue of TV Guide. There's a column every week by Harry Stein called Our Times. It's a column about values and television. And he gets it. I want to read to you from the column. The headline of the column at the top is, "You can make fun of Rush, but he's not going away." It strikes me that to minimize Rush Limbaugh's importance is to misunderstand this moment in our history. Limbaugh has become a phenomenon, indeed an industry, not just because he makes people laugh, but because of whom and what he so effectively lambastes: the values and belief system of the cultural elite and the dominant media culture. Little wonder Limbaugh is so routinely reviled in New York, Washington, and L.A. as irresponsible and dangerous, or that his book, The Way Things Ought to Be, was atop the bestseller list for 26 weeks of the New York Times before they even deigned to review it. It's precisely this contempt that has made Rush Limbaugh what he is today. Millions of average, now this is it. This is the paragraph. This is where the guy really gets it. Millions of average Americans feel it on a daily basis, knowing that none of the talk of empowerment today has to do with them. Rush Limbaugh speaks for the people who are being blamed for all that's wrong when they're not responsible for it. It's good stuff, folks. Now listen to this. Many of us who don't always see eye to eye with him have been similarly won over. Thanks, Harry Stein. One other thing, me in the press today. This is Time magazine. What issue? This is the issue with the dinosaurs on the cover. There you go. And this is the People page, page 73. And this is a story, again, about the movie Indecent Proposal. And the director, Adrian Lynn, is being advised to maybe do a sequel of this movie. And the idea Time magazine came up with is to call it Another Indecent Proposal. And he would have make it a powerful moral and aesthetic quandary, maybe a hit with Rush Limbaugh as Gage and Gloria Steinem as his $1 million one-night stand. Well, look, I don't know about her, but I wouldn't get near it with a 10-foot pole for $10 million. We've got our rest of our show coming up. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back. We're going to take on first tonight the stimulus package. There seems to be a lot of controversy stirring around it. We can make some points tonight just by showing you some clips of newsmakers in the news. Now, again, just to refresh everybody's memory, the $16 billion stimulus package is a plan that Bill Clinton says is needed to get jobs. And it's a jobs bill, he says, and without it, we're not going to have our recovery sustain itself. We already spend $300 billion more than we have every year. And $16 billion lopped into that is not going to make a dent. There aren't any significant jobs in this package anyway. The president admitted that when he agreed to take 25% or $4 billion out of it. We want to show you some clips here because we're going to lead up to a conclusion. First off, as we promised, Alan Greenspan, who's chairman of the Federal Reserve, he was making a speech the other day and was asked a question about the stimulus package, and here was part of his answer. Pretty salient.
Stimulus package of its size in the $6 trillion economy clearly cannot have a substantial effect one way or the other, and I will leave it at that.
So it's irrelevant. It is absolutely irrelevant. Chairman of the Federal Reserve sitting next to Hillary Clinton during the State of the Nation speech. I really do think this is kind of like David Broder telling me, well, what I just heard is nonsense. He was trying to get his credibility back because I once agreed with him. And Greenspan's now trying to get his credibility back because, I mean, no chairman of the Federal Reserve has ever gone up for a State of the Union or State of the Nation address, much less sit next to First Lady. Now, the president is panicking. The president and his party are in a state of desperation. Here's President Clinton talking about the state of this package recently. Watch this.
This bill was held up. I didn't like it, but I offered to compromise. To take some of the jobs out of it, though it grieves me, to try to respond to some of the specific speeches that were given by Republican senators on the floor of the Senate. And so far, what have they said to my good faith offer?
What?
Same old thing. Stonewall. This is the deficit. We can't add to the deficit. Folks, this is a crowd that had the government for 12 years. They took the deficit from $1 trillion to $4 trillion. Have they no shame? How can they say this?
In the first place, it's the national debt that went from $1 trillion to $4 trillion, not the deficit. There's a major difference in the two. But let's remind people exactly what it is, Mr. President, that you said you wanted to do as president. You wanted to reduce the deficit. You wanted to get rid of all this deficit spending because only then could we have economic growth. Only then would we have prosperity. So you get your job, you win the election, and you come up and you offer a package which increases spending. The Republicans simply took you at your word. The Republicans listened to the people. The Republicans said, we've got to pay for this stuff from now on. The people are tired of deficit spending. Here is Bill Clinton and his party running for election on change. They get into office and they do the same old thing. Deficit spending, increased taxes. Here the Republicans and the senators say, wait a minute, you ought to pay for this. The Republicans heard the people. The Republicans are offering change, a change from the routine. And the president says, now have they no shame? Why, these were the deficit spenders for the last 12 years. And he's going to continue it? I thought you people elected him to reduce the deficit. Ha, ha, ha. He has swerved in. He really has swerved. Now, I want to go to something else here. This has come up recently. A lot of people, even in the Republican Party, think the Senate ought not do this filibuster. They ought to just get out of the way and let Clinton have his way because the plan's going to fail. And when it fails, don't give Clinton any ammunition to blame Republicans, as they may be able to do now by saying, hey, I got to have my plan, but they stopped it. They wouldn't let us have it. They had that filibuster in there, and have they no shame? and all that. And I think this is, and I've said this countless times and say it again, the Republican Party must follow principles and ethics, as they're doing in the Senate. This plan hurts America. This plan hurts the middle class. This plan hurts the people who make the country work. And therefore, the Republicans have a duty to stop it. They are morally and ethically required to stop it. Now, about this business that, hey, they won the election, let them have their plan, let them have their policy. The Federalist Papers are the documents which were written by our founding fathers that preceded the Constitution. The Federalist Papers, in fact, were the experimentation. They were the thinks, the thoughts of the writers of the Constitution, the authors. And Thomas Sowell, a brilliant economist and columnist and professor at the Hoover Institute, which is on the campus of Stanford University, has written a book recently. He says, you know, it's amazing. You can go into campus bookstores all over America. It's tough to find the Federalist Papers, but you can find Marx everywhere. You can find Engels, or you can find Ortega and how to buy sunglasses in Manhattan everywhere. But you can't find the Federalist Papers. It's a tough thing. We went and looked up the Federalist Papers about this. James Madison, Federalist number 10. Follow along, folks. The accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary, in the same hands, whether of one, a few, or many, and whether hereditary, self-appointed, or elective, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny. Now, I know that Madison happens to write flawlessly and eloquently and speak the language properly, and many of us may not know exactly what that means since the language was used properly. There were no likes and us and you knows in there, so it may have been tough for some of you to follow. Let me translate it. Could you put it back up again, Chet? Basically, the accumulation of all powers, that means if one party holds power in the White House, go ahead and leave it up, in the White House, in Congress, both houses, the House and Senate, and the judiciary, and the White House gets to appoint judges. If they have all the power there, whether they've been elected, whether they've been appointed, or whether they've just grown up to inherit it, if there's no opposition, if nobody stops that, if nobody tries to get in the way of that kind of one-party rule, you can put me back on TV now. There, thank you. Thank you. If there's nobody to stop it, you've got tyranny. And so, if the congressional Republicans don't stand in opposition to this, then we are allowing Democratic Party tyranny. And just because they won the election doesn't mean that everything they want to do is right. So the Republicans they're required to do this. And you should thank them for doing it, those of you in the middle class. And I think more people are realizing this day and day as the president's approval ratings continue to plummet. When I look this way, ladies and gentlemen, I'm looking to the clock. I run this show. I decide when we're going to take commercial breaks based upon what I have left to do. I have just gazed at that clock and I see that we have to take a break, even though we're not through with this segment. There's a lot more, so don't go away because we'll have it for you when we get back. Ladies and gentlemen, what this is the official rundown of the show. This is the blueprint for what we want to try to do tonight. And I'm just adding up the time of all the elements we have left to show you. And if I don't say another word, we might be able to finish the show, which would be an interesting thing. Let's just finish this first segment. Now, George Mitchell, I told you that he said something incredible. This is a sure sign that these guys are in desperation over this stimulus package. And I want to be very careful here because Senator Mitchell is an intelligent man. I disagree with him politically, but he's very reasoned and well thought out. That's why this is such a surprise to me. Just roll the clip, Chip. I think it speaks for itself. Take a look, folks.
If a single American city goes up this summer because this summer jobs program hasn't been approved, it won't be the laughing matter that some of our colleagues are making it out to be today.
You believe that? That's the Senate Majority Leader threatening riots in cities if they don't get this stimulus package. There aren't any jobs in this package. You can get the $16 billion and it wouldn't make anybody happy, except people in Puerto Rico. That's where the swimming pool jobs are. I mean, seriously, folks, there aren't any jobs. Now, I want to go back to yesterday's show. NAALCP Chairman Benjamin Chavis. Now, listen to this one. This is the same thing from yesterday.
Whether or not we're going to have a cool summer or a long, hot summer is directly related, in our estimation, to the passage of this stimulus plan. That's what's at stake.
man, you got him saying it yesterday, Mitchell saying it the next day, and it isn't true. This is a threat. This is an outgrowth of that trial out in Los Angeles. You threaten a community with destruction, violence, looting, fires, and whatever, and you get the verdict you want. And now they're trying it with legislation. I mean, it's shameless. And it's dangerous. It's irresponsible. And there's probably no other show that would dare point this out to you, which is why we're here and doing so well. Now, I'm going to take a break. We'll come back, decide what of the remaining parts of the show we're going to do. Come back for the surprise. Was that somebody in the audience that's pregnant that had a sign that said future ditto head? How about that? And now we got the clock in the picture too, is that right? There you go, folks. That's the only thing I need to do this show. That's all, and that's what I'm looking at. Of course, to you it's right there, but well, it was there, but it's really up there. Okay, that's the illusion of television. Nothing is the way it seems. Waco, Texas. This has been a calamity in one sense, and that is who's to blame? Who's responsible? How could this have happened? Let's show you the chronology. Beginning about the middle of the night Monday, middle of the evening into the late night, into the day on Tuesday. We just put all these things together, butted them up one right next to the other, just like that, and here it is.
This is my responsibility. I'm accountable for it.
I knew it was going to be done, but the decisions were entirely theirs.
The responsibility lies with me.
They made the tactical decisions. That was theirs.
I approved the plan, and I'm responsible for it. I advised the president, but I did not advise him as to the details.
It's a decision by the Attorney General and the FBI.
Talk to the Attorney General of the FBI. I knew it was going to be done, but the decisions were entirely theirs.
I consulted with the president, told him that this was a decision that I had made, that I was willing to assume responsibility for it.
The Attorney General and the FBI have operational control over this, but clearly he was informed.
Now that takes us up till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday. Note that Janet Reno tried to take the heat and the blame on this how many times? At least 4. And Stephanopoulos tried to give her the heat twice. And Clinton tried to say, hey, it's her fault. I mean, everybody was shoveling it off on Janet Reno, and she was sitting there taking it all. Then my radio show came on the air. And that's when the administration learned how to handle it. Now, my radio show, it's true, folks. My radio show starts at noon Eastern time, and they have I'm sure they listen to it down there, because that's when everything's straightened out. I said on my radio show that you wait, Clinton is going to end up taking responsibility for it. Clinton is going to be the guy, because this is a very impolitic thing for him to do. You probably heard me say this, because I know many of you listen to my show. Very impolitic thing to distance himself from his subordinates, which he did. So later, after my show had been on the air for an hour, Bill Clinton had a press conference in the Rose Garden and said this.
It is a decision for which I take responsibility. I'm the President of the United States, and I signed off on the general decision and giving her the authority to make the last call. When I talked to her on Sunday, some time had elapsed. She might have made a decision to change her mind. I said, if you decide to go forward with this tomorrow, I will support you, and I do support her. It is not, she is not ultimately responsible to the American people. I am.
But it was still her decision, and I supported her decision, but it's my responsibility. But that's not even true. I just said that he would take the responsibility for the actions of the government while he's president, as he should. But really, who's responsible for what happened here? Anybody in the audience, somebody take a shot. Who's responsible for what happened down there? Who? Koresh is right. Now I want to go to my radio show. We had a caller to my radio show again in the first hour, where the president had a chance to listen to this, and here is what transpired with that call on my radio show today. What's all this blaming the FBI and the ATF? Blame him.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the guy who ordered these people to set fire. Yes.
Even if somebody storms his house, which may have been wrong, may have been a mistake, may have been right, it just seems like nobody forced him to kill himself. Nobody forced him to torch that place. Nobody forced.
After that was on the air, here is President Clinton yet again.
David Koresh was dangerous, irrational, and probably insane. He killed those he controlled, and he bears ultimate responsibility for the carnage that ensued.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Clinton administration finally, after 12 hours of bumbling and stumbling, got it right after my radio show went on the air. A service to America.
Services provided and promotional fees paid by the following. Rush Limbaugh's Wardrobe by Rochester, Big and Tall. Send your Rush video to The Rush Limbaugh Show, 515 West 57th Street, New York City, New York, 10019.
If you'd like to order a video cassette of Rush's TV show for only $24.95, just call 1-800-FOR-VIDEO. For a transcript, send $5 to Burrell's Transcripts, Box 7, Livingston, New Jersey, 07039, or call 1-800-777-TEXT.